Welcome back to our final segment here with Michael Mills, the president of the Scranton Catholic Teachers Union. Mike, one of the things that has occurred to me over the course of the last several months when all this has been transpiring is, how do you and your teachers reconcile the fact that Catholic social doctrine teaches about the right of every human being to organize, and yet you, as the teachers of that Catholic doctrine, are not being allowed to organize?
That's been one of the most difficult things that we've had to contend with, and that's been from the beginning. We don't think that there's anything equivocal about the Church's stand in that regard. I said that before. The bishop's trying to give it, as I said, a bit of a spin to it, and saying that this idea of greater rights, so on and so forth. It's not what we teach the kids. That's certainly what they learn in their theology classes. It's not what I teach in the history classes, where I proudly build up the idea of how the Church, particularly in our area, has always been behind labor, and that's where it should be. It's very difficult to do that. I think, you know, when the kids did their thing at Holy Redeemer a couple of weeks ago, when they took that walk and they held up those signs, they held up those preachings of the Church that, as I said, were not equivocal to them either. They know what they were taught, and they found it difficult to believe that their church here is not practicing what it's preaching.
On a more global basis, I mean, myself and my partners are very politically active. Many of us have run for offices, and we've always relied upon organized labor and the Catholic Church as being supportive of our causes. And I'm looking here more for almost the global effect of this. Once you start to chip away at those two foundations, aren't you in fact hurting the future of not only Catholicism, but unions here in the area as well as the political basis?
Absolutely, and it's the Church says it itself. They put out very, very recently, this is from November of 2007, the Challenge of Forming Consciences for Faithful Citizenship. This the Catholic bishops put out. They say it's not a voting guide, it's a voting guide, where they tell them the things that they should be considering as they go to the polls. And one of those things that they say right out in this, if I might quote, I don't want to belabor the point, but it says, the economy must serve people, not the other way around, excuse me. Economic justice calls for decent work at fair living wages, opportunities for legal status for immigrant workers, and the opportunity for all people to work together for the common good through their work, ownership, enterprise, investment, participation in unions, and other forms of economic activity. So you hit the nail right on the head. They know that the Church has an impact on the global economy and our economy at home, the way we treat people in the workplace. So for them to be treating us, their workers, differently than they ask others to treat their workers, there's a word for those who, you know, say one thing and do another, but
and that takes
us
to our question of the week. And it's pretty obvious, and that is, should the Scranton Diocese recognize the Catholic Teachers Union as the sole bargaining unit for the teachers in the consolidated school systems? Please log on to www.ubthejudgepa.com and cast your vote. I want to thank Michael Mills for joining us here this morning, and I hope that he has enlightened you on the role that the union plays, as well as the historical significance of the union here in the Scranton Diocese. And I ask you to please join us next week when we have another interesting topic here on You Be the Judge.